What if everything you think you know about the world is wrong? What if I told you that God is not who you've been taught to believe, and that your soul is trapped here on earth, bound in a prison of flesh? Would you be ready to question everything? Why is this world a prison? Why are we locked in these bodies, forgetting our true essence? What is the real story behind our existence, hidden beneath layers of lies? In this video, I will reveal an ancient truth that has been concealed for millennia, a story of awakening, a cosmic battle between light and darkness, and the profound reason why your soul is imprisoned. You will learn the secrets behind the forces controlling your reality and how to free yourself from their grasp. It's time to awaken to the truth, to realize that we are not merely beings of flesh and bone, but sparks of divine light, trapped in a world far different from what we've been told. The journey to freedom begins now. Stay with me as we uncover the hidden truths, and let us embark on a journey of self-realization and liberation. Before the light, there was darkness. And before the Creator we know, there existed a primal source of pure, untainted light, a cosmic principle far beyond the narrow scope of any god. In this ancient knowledge, what we are told in the traditional scriptures is only a fraction of the vast story that awaits our discovery. The Gnostic view on the origin of the world is strikingly different from the familiar narratives we've been taught. We have been raised to believe in a single, supreme creator, one who molded the world as we know it. But what if that story is only part of the truth, a shadow of a much grander reality? The Gnostics speak of the eons, radiant entities not of divine worship but of essence, reflections of that pure light. They were not angels nor gods in the traditional sense, but emanations of the One, divine principles personified. The true nature of existence was not formed by a singular act of creation, but unfolded through the flow of these eons, stretching the fabric of reality itself. But in the midst of this cosmic unfolding, a shift occurred. There was a crack in the cosmic balance, a distortion, a force that sought to create, but in doing so, imprisoned the very essence it was meant to liberate. A false god emerged, Yaldabaoth. This entity, born of an imperfect creation, took it upon himself to declare himself as the one true creator, a god who knew not the truth of the world he crafted. This is where the Gnostic creation story diverges sharply from the traditional biblical account. In the book of Genesis, we are told of a God who molds man in his image and casts the world into existence with a single word. Yet in the Gnostic tradition, the world was not created by a god, but by a flawed being who, in his ignorance, trapped humanity within the confines of the material world. Yaldabaoth, blinded by his own arrogance, believed himself to be the one true God, casting the material world into being, thus shackling the divine light within human beings, condemning them to forget their true spiritual nature. The Creator, as we know it in the Bible, is not the ultimate divine force, but rather a force that distorts, limits, and controls. But what if this knowledge has been buried for millennia? What if the true Creator, the source of all light and life, has been hidden from us by the very forces that seek to keep us trapped in this world of illusions? What if we've been deceived to believe in a God that does not understand us, and in doing so, we have lived our lives in ignorance of our true selves? This realization is the awakening the Gnostics speak of, and it begins with understanding the force behind our current existence, Yaldabaoth. In the story of Adam and Eve, we see this awakening unfold in a symbolic act, one that the traditional interpretation calls a fall, but the Gnostic interpretation sees as the first step toward liberation. Adam, according to the Gnostics, was not a mere human being. He was a reflection of divine light, the embodiment of the first human essence born from the eternal source. Eve, too, was not a mere rib from Adam, as Genesis suggests. She was a manifestation of life, a force of wisdom, a divine spark that sought to awaken from the slumber imposed by the false god. In the biblical tale, Eve's act of eating the forbidden fruit is often seen as the original sin, the fall from grace. But in the Gnostic view, this was the moment of awakening, the moment when Eve, and through her, Adam, reached for knowledge, understanding, and enlightenment. The fruit was not simply an act of defiance, but an invitation to reclaim their divine essence and transcend the control of the false god. Just as Eve took that step, so too can we. The world around us, filled with distractions and societal pressures, tries to keep us ignorant, focused only on the material and the fleeting. We are told to follow, to obey, to accept the limitations imposed upon us by the system, but the truth is, we are more than that. We are divine beings, born from the light, not meant to be bound by the constraints of the material world. This realization does not come without struggle. The forces that seek to control us, whether they be political systems, religious doctrines, or societal expectations, do not want us to awaken. They thrive on our ignorance, on our compliance, on our forgetfulness. But it is through this very ignorance that we are kept in chains. When we break free of these constraints, when we begin to awaken, the world as we know it begins to shift. It is not easy, though. The world is filled with Archons, forces of control that exist to keep us bound in the material, to maintain the illusion that this is all there is. These Archons are not just external, they are also within us, in the form of fear, doubt, and confusion. They whisper in our minds, telling us that we are not enough, that we are not worthy, that we are incapable of transcending the limits of the world we live in. But we are. The journey of awakening is not one of mere knowledge. It is a process of unshackling ourselves from the chains of fear and doubt, of reaching into the depths of our being and reclaiming our divine essence. It is about discovering the truth of who we really are and transcending the illusion that has kept us bound to the material realm. When we look to the Gnostic teachings, we see the figure of Jesus in a new light. This is not the Christ of traditional Christianity who came to save humanity from sin. Instead, this is the Gnostic Jesus, the teacher who came not to save us from the material world, but to show us the path to awakening. His message was not about redemption from sin, but about the realization of our true nature. He came to teach us how to awaken from the dream, how to remember who we truly are, and how to break free from the control of the Archons. This is the message that transcends time and place. It is the message that calls us to awaken, to rise above the material world, and to reclaim our divine essence. It is a message that speaks to our soul, to the part of us that knows we are meant for something greater than what we have been told. This journey is not an easy one. It requires us to confront the darkness within and without, to challenge the beliefs and systems that seek to keep us imprisoned. But it is a journey worth taking. For when we awaken, we no longer live in fear. We live in the light, guided by the knowledge of who we truly are. The key to this transformation lies within each of us. It is a process of self-discovery, of peeling back the layers of illusion that have been placed upon us. We are not lost, we are not trapped. We are divine beings, capable of immense power and light. All it takes is the willingness to awaken, to see the truth, and to step into the light that is already within us. It's time to embrace the truth, to break free from the chains of fear and doubt, and to reclaim the divine light within. This is the journey of awakening, and it begins with us, right here, right now. In the Garden of Eden, as the story goes, Adam and Eve encountered a pivotal moment, an event often regarded as a fall from grace, a tragic descent into sin. But what if the traditional narrative is only a shadow of the true meaning behind their actions? What if, in the depths of the Edenic garden, a divine truth was being unveiled? Not a simple lapse in obedience, but a profound awakening of the soul. The Gnostic interpretation of Adam and Eve reveals a radically different perspective. In this view, Adam was not a mere man. He was a being of light, a divine reflection of the higher realms. He was not created in the image of a limited God, but in the likeness of the primal light that transcends the material world. Eve, too, was not formed from a rib, as the traditional text suggests, but rather from the very essence of life itself, a living manifestation of divine wisdom seeking truth and enlightenment. When Eve partook of the forbidden fruit, she did not fall, as we are taught. Instead, she chose to awaken. The fruit was not simply an act of defiance against the will of God, it was an act of spiritual revelation. In that moment, Eve embraced the knowledge of good and evil, the very essence of enlightenment that would bring about the awakening of humanity. This act of reaching for knowledge was not the original sin. It was the first step toward liberation from the false god, Yaldabaoth, who had imprisoned humanity in the material world. In many ways, this moment mirrors our own struggles today. How often are we told by society, by the systems in place, that seeking truth beyond the surface is wrong, dangerous even? How often are we urged to stay within the boundaries of what we're taught, to never question the established narratives? But what if questioning, seeking, and awakening to the deeper truths of our existence are the very keys to our freedom? The story of Adam and Eve in the Gnostic tradition invites us to reclaim the power of our own awakening, to rise above the imposed limitations of the material world, and to embrace the divine light within. It is not only Eve who has the potential to awaken. Every individual has the same divine spark, that same light buried deep within, waiting to be ignited. But just as Eve's awakening led her to a greater knowledge of herself, so too must we awaken to the truth of who we are. We are not bound by the confines of our physical bodies, nor are we defined by the roles that society demands of us. We are more than that. We are sparks of the divine, reflections of the higher realms, and our true essence is not limited to the material world. The first step in our own journey of awakening is the realization of this truth, that we are not slaves to the world around us, but sovereign beings of light, destined for something far greater. But the forces of control, the Archons, do not wish for us to awaken. These beings, born of the false god, Yaldabaoth, exist to keep humanity in darkness, to prevent us from discovering our true nature. They are not merely external forces, but also internal voices, voices of doubt, fear, and confusion. These Archons whisper to us, telling us that we are not enough, that we are incapable of change, that we are trapped in the material world and cannot escape. They thrive on our ignorance, on our compliance, on our failure to realize our true nature. Yet, despite their attempts to keep us in the dark, there is hope. There is a way out of the prison that has been constructed for us. The key to breaking free lies within our own awakening. We can transcend the control of the Archons by embracing our true selves, by reclaiming the divine light within us. This process of awakening is not easy. It requires us to challenge everything we have been taught, to question the narratives that have shaped our lives, and to confront the darkness within us. But it is through this very process that we begin to free ourselves from the chains of fear and doubt. In this journey, we are not alone. The Gnostic teachings speak of a savior figure, a Christ not as the traditional redeemer, but as a guide, a teacher who helps us awaken to our true nature. This Gnostic Jesus did not come to save us from sin, but to show us the way to awaken to the divine within us. He did not die for our sins, but to teach us that we are already divine, and that through awakening we can reclaim our true power. Just as Eve's act of eating the fruit was an awakening, so too must we awaken to the divine knowledge that is already within us. We must shed the layers of illusion that have been placed upon us by the false god, Yaldabaoth. and begin to live in accordance with our true nature. This is the message that Christ came to teach, not just in ancient times, but for us today. That we are divine, that we are capable of transcending the material world, and that through awakening, we can free ourselves from the control of the Archons. In the world today, we are surrounded by systems of control that seek to keep us in the material realm, to keep us focused on external things and away from the deeper truths of who we are. We live in a world that tells us that we are not enough, that we need more money, more success, more validation, when in reality, all we need is to awaken to the truth of our divine nature. The journey of awakening is not one that requires us to seek outside ourselves, but one that requires us to look within. The answers are already inside us, waiting to be discovered. But as we begin this journey, we must be prepared for resistance. The Archons, both external and internal, will attempt to keep us in the dark. They will try to convince us that we are not worthy, that we cannot change, that we cannot break free from the chains that bind us. But the truth is, we are already free. We are already divine. The only thing we need to do is awaken to that truth and begin living in accordance with it. This is the message of the Gnostic teachings, and it is a message that transcends time and place. It is a message that calls us to awaken to the divine light within us, to break free from the control of the Archons, and to reclaim our true nature. It is a message that encourages us to challenge the false narratives that have been imposed upon us and to live in alignment with the truth of who we are. The world may try to keep us in the dark, but we have the power to awaken. The journey is not easy, but it is worth it. When we awaken to our true nature, we no longer live in fear. We live in the light, guided by the knowledge of who we truly are. This is the message that we must carry with us, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. It is time to awaken, to reclaim our divine essence, and to live as the beings of light that we were always meant to be. So, let us walk this path of awakening together. Let us rise above the illusions that have kept us bound, and let us live in the truth of who we truly are. The time is now. The journey begins with us. In the Gnostic teachings, the figure of Jesus is not the Savior as we traditionally understand him. He does not come to die for the sins of humanity. Instead, he comes as the great teacher, the bringer of knowledge, and the guide to awakening. The Gnostic Christ speaks not of redemption through sacrifice, but of liberation through knowledge. His purpose is not to save us from the world, but to awaken us to the divine essence that resides within each of us. This is a radically different understanding of Christ than what is commonly taught. The Gnostic Jesus is not a figure of external salvation, but a symbol of the divine potential within every soul. The message of the Gnostic Jesus is simple, yet profound. We are not bound to this material world. We are not meant to live in ignorance, enslaved by the systems of control imposed upon us. We are divine beings, born from the light, and we have the power to transcend the limitations of this physical reality. But to do so, we must first awaken to the truth of who we are. We must recognize that the chains that bind us are not made of flesh and bone, but of ignorance, fear, and doubt. It is through the awakening of our consciousness, through the recognition of our true nature, that we can free ourselves from the control of the false god, Yaldabaoth, and the Archons that seek to keep us imprisoned in the material world. This awakening is not an event, but a process, a journey. It is a journey that requires courage, patience, and self-awareness. The world around us will try to keep us distracted, to keep us focused on the external, to keep us looking for salvation outside ourselves. But the truth is, salvation is already within us. The divine spark that we seek is not something we need to find. It is something we need to awaken. This is the core of the Gnostic message. The key to our freedom is not in the external world, but in the recognition of our divine nature. When we begin to see ourselves as divine beings, when we begin to live in alignment with our true essence, the world around us begins to shift. Just as Jesus came to teach us the way to the truth, we too must follow the path of awakening. We must learn to see beyond the illusions of this world, to recognize the forces of control that seek to keep us trapped, and to reclaim our divine power. This is not an easy journey. It requires us to challenge everything we have been taught, to confront the fears and doubts that hold us back, and to let go of the false beliefs that keep us chained to the material world. But it is a journey worth taking. For when we awaken to the truth, we are no longer slaves to the world around us. We are free to live in alignment with our divine nature, to create a reality that reflects our true essence. The message of the Gnostic Jesus is not just a message of spiritual awakening. It is a message of empowerment. It is a call to recognize that we are not victims of the world, but creators of our own reality. We have the power to change our lives, to break free from the control of the Archons, and to live in alignment with our divine purpose. But to do so, we must first awaken to the truth of who we are. We must learn to see ourselves as divine beings, worthy of freedom and light. This awakening is not something that happens overnight. It is a gradual process, a journey of self-discovery and transformation. But as we begin to recognize our true nature, as we begin to shed the layers of illusion that have been placed upon us, we begin to experience a profound shift in our lives. We begin to see the world differently. We begin to see the beauty and divinity in everything around us. And as we awaken, we become a beacon of light for others, helping them to awaken as well. Just as the Gnostic Jesus came to teach us the way to awakening, we too must become teachers of truth. We must help others see beyond the illusions of the material world and recognize their own divine nature. This is not just about personal enlightenment. It is about collective awakening. It is about helping each other break free from the control of the Archons and live in alignment with our true purpose. Together, we can create a world that reflects the divine essence within each of us. The path of awakening is not easy, but it is the only path that leads to true freedom. It is the path that leads us out of the darkness and into the light. It is the path that leads us back to our divine source, back to the truth of who we are. The Gnostic teachings remind us that we are not bound to this world, that we are not victims of our circumstances. We are divine beings, born from the light, and we have the power to transcend the material world. But we must first awaken to that truth. In the journey of awakening, we are not alone. We are guided by the divine light within us, and we are supported by those who have walked this path before us. Just as Jesus came to show us the way, so too do the great teachers and spiritual guides of our time continue to illuminate the path to awakening. We must trust in ourselves and in the divine light that guides us. For it is through this trust that we will find the strength to break free from the control of the false god and the Archons. The time for awakening is now. The world around us may try to keep us in the dark, but we have the power to see the truth. We have the power to awaken to our divine nature and live in alignment with our true essence. It is time to reclaim our power, to transcend the limitations of the material world, and to live in the light. The journey of awakening begins with each of us, and it begins now. Let us rise up together, embrace the divine truth within us, and help each other awaken to our true purpose. For in our awakening, we will find the freedom and the light that have always been within us, waiting to be discovered. The path is before us. Let us walk it with courage, love, and the unwavering belief in our divine potential. As we come to the end of this journey, I want to take a moment to reflect on what we've discovered together. We've ventured through the vast depths of ancient knowledge, peeled back the layers of illusion and illuminated the truth about who we truly are. We've learned that we are not mere inhabitants of this world, shackled to the material realm. We are divine sparks, beings of light, and our purpose is far greater than what we've been told. In a world where distractions abound and darkness seeks to cloud our minds, it's easy to forget our true essence. But it is in these very moments of uncertainty and confusion that we must awaken. The knowledge we've explored today isn't just a story of old. It's a living truth, calling us to step into the light, to reclaim our divine nature, and to break free from the control of the forces that have kept us bound for so long. This is not just a philosophical or spiritual concept. It's a living, breathing reality that we can embrace in our daily lives. If this video has touched your soul, if it has illuminated a path for you, or inspired a deeper connection to the divine light within, I invite you to share that energy. Let it ripple out into the world, into your own life, and into the lives of others. When we awaken to the truth within, we begin to see the world differently. We no longer see ourselves as victims, as powerless beings stuck in a world of chaos and confusion. Instead, we see ourselves as sovereign beings, capable of transforming the world around us, capable of embracing our divine nature and living with purpose and clarity. If this message has resonated with you, if it has brought you closer to understanding your true essence, I ask you to support this journey. Your encouragement, whether through a simple like, a thoughtful comment, or subscribing to the channel, means more than you might realize. It's not just about numbers, it's about a collective awakening. Your support helps keep this light shining, and your energy contributes to the ripple effect that spreads this truth even further. If this video has helped you find light in the midst of darkness, or if it has brought clarity to your path, I would be deeply grateful for your continued support. And remember, every small contribution, no matter how simple it may seem, is invaluable. Your words, your presence, your energy help fuel this movement. You are a part of this awakening, and together we are creating a space where truth, light, and freedom can flourish. As we all continue on this path, let us support one another in our journeys of self-discovery, as we reclaim our divine nature and break free from the chains that seek to hold us down. In a world that constantly tries to define us by external standards, this journey is one of remembering. It's a journey of returning to the truth of who we are, not who the world wants us to be. As you continue on this journey, know that you are not alone. You are part of a greater story, one that spans across time and space, from the ancient truths to the present moment. The divine spark within you is the same divine spark that has always existed, the same light that has illuminated the path for countless souls before us. So, let us walk this path together, in unity, in light, and in love. Let us continue to seek the truth, to awaken to our divine potential, and to share this light with others. Let us not be afraid to challenge the systems that seek to keep us in darkness, but instead, let us be the beacons of truth and awakening that this world so desperately needs. Every moment you spend on this journey is a step closer to freedom, a step closer to the divine truth that lies within you. If this message has sparked something inside you, I encourage you to share your thoughts. What truths have you uncovered on your own journey? What moments of awakening have shifted your perspective? Let's continue this conversation, for in sharing our experiences, we empower each other to continue on the path of self-realization. Thank you from the depths of my heart for being here, for walking this path with me, and for embracing the light within. May your journey continue to be filled with clarity, peace, and the deep knowing of who you truly are.